Okay. Do we usually broadcast that part of it, or?
Yeah.
Okay. What's up? You have to go around and get a battery for the camera. Oh, that's important. So the power off. Is all of your stuff on here so we don't miss any? Yeah, it's just for the election parts. Oh, good. Glad you got that. They usually have somebody. They'll stand up and wave. Did you prime in? No. But he likes to be palmed. I think back to the roads and drive. Yeah, I would expect 3 or 4. So no, there's a couple of little places right at work. Oh yeah, out by the hills. Sure. No, we used to have some. Oh, I think the president.
All right, good evening and welcome to the December meeting of the Rocky Mountain Railroad Club for the year 2022. And this is also our night for the annual meeting for the club. So I figured we'd probably just start off with that and get it over with. So I will call the meeting to order here at the 19:35 or 7:35 p.m. for those that don't do 24-hour time, which is the correct time, but you know, anyway. So I guess our first method or bit of business would be to read the meeting. Unless we've got somebody from the floor that would like to. All right. Well, motion by Wally and second by yeah, right. A cast of thousands. Yeah. All in favor? Any opposed? If there are any opposed, too bad. Yeah. However, this is not a dictatorship, so I guess we will probably present something later in the year for the treasury report to give you an idea of where the club stands. It's just too hard to do that at the end of the year because there's a lot of things that are not submitted yet, and we're in the middle of membership renewal, which Dave will talk about later, and it's just not a good time to put the treasury report out. So we'll do that in the rail report probably in around May or June or somewhere in there when we've got everything all come in for the membership renewals. And I guess our next bit of business would be our board of directors. We published some of that in the rail report for December, and we probably missed a few things, but on the site we've got me running again for president for 2023, Dave Shaw running for vice president, Keith Jensen running for treasurer, and Steve Suber running for secretary again. And then we've got new nominee that I think we've got in the rail report for Kirk Thode to step up for being a 2-year board member, and he's also going to be helping Chip proofread with our new email version of the rail report that will be starting here in January. And do we got nominations from the board? So we need 2 or 3 more. All right, we've got a nomination for Jenny Leonard. All right, we'll have another one from the floor. Yeah. All right, we've got Nathan Holmes as well. And some of this, we were a little bit confused on things and we didn't quite get it on the rail report, and we were kind of short of you, and our nominating committee didn't quite get out to find a whole lot of people that were willing to run. And so we've got two that graciously volunteered their time again to run. So any other nominations from the floor, or should I?
I'll second the nomination for Nathan. And
Okay.
well, thank you all for not running away. So
Yes. Yeah. Like Nathan has said, I don't want to be the last, or I may not be the best president, I just don't want to be the last. Which, as you can guess, would mean the organization would fold under your leadership, and that's certainly not something I want to do either. And it does take a number of roughly 10 to 11 board members to keep the club up and going and keep our rail report running and events up current, and Keith does our and sell the book straight. And we're also looking for kind of a CPA kind of person to do the further stuff to file with the state and all the tax forms that we have to do for a C7 with the club and a C3 for 501 with the Rocky Mountain Railroad Historical Foundation. That's a mouthful there. Yeah. So I guess there are no other nominations from the floor. We've presented all the officers that would like to run for 2023, and we also have Pat Morrow, Nathan Zockman, and Debbie McDonald will be completing their second year of a 2-year term. They were elected last year at the 2021 meeting, so we just wanted to put them out there as well, so you're aware of who all our board members are. And so if there are no other nominations from the floor, I'd like to. All right. We've got Tom Klinger moved that the nominations be closed, and Chip Sherman seconded. All in favor of the presented, both in the rail report and from the floor, officers and board of directors for the Rocky Mountain Railroad Club. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Do we have any old business for the club? Oh, okay. Yep. Thank you, Denny. We'll got to keep with the Roberts rules of order there. So, yes, Wally.
So for Steve Seber, who's going to be transcribing all this later, Wally Wirt moved that the board be approved by acclamation. That was seconded by Tom Klinger. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And now we're, I think, ready to vote.
Yep. All right. All in favor of those slated to be elected for the 2023 term, and those that are on 2-year board, all in favor? Any opposed?
Yeah, there's always one.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that
I didn't hear
passed.
anything.
I think that passed. I didn't hear there was some
Passed almost
flying around.
unanimously. Does anybody have any old business for the Rocky Mountain Railroad Club? I guess our new business would just be that we are now transitioning to a digital/email version of the rail report, graciously volunteered by Chip Sherman's time, as well as Kirk Thode and Dave Shaw for proofreading. And we definitely look forward to having information submitted from our members and pictures and stories and that kind of thing. Previously, those went to Bruce and all, and they will be now going to Chip. And so keep an eye on your emails and on the website for email addresses, that kind of thing, to submit things to. So. And then
before you close the annual meeting, I just wanted to recognize 20 years of work from Mike Tonetti as a board member and basically handling our members for all this time. Thank you very much. And also Bruce Nall being our editor for 25 years, you know, lending his graphic knowledge and graphic arts knowledge. I think that sounds right. Yeah. Anyway, we want to recognize those fellows for sure, and everybody else that has given their time for board and any other volunteer time that helped out the club. Thank you.
Yeah, we just get a hint. Thank you for a round of applause for those two individuals. And so, get something, Denny?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
part of
we'll-
our announcements.
Yeah, we'll do that
Yeah.
a little bit later, but Wally. Okay.
That's part of the announcements too, Wally.
but yeah.
We're still on official business, but
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, unless we have some other business, could I get a motion to close the meeting for the Rocky Mountain Railroad Club annual meeting? Roger Sherman made a motion. Could I get a second? Nathan Holmes seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, we'll close that out at 19:43 or 7:43 p.m. for the Rocky Mountain Railroad Club, and then we'll go ahead and open a very similar meeting for the Rocky Mountain Railroad Historical Foundation, which is our 501c3, our nonprofit extension of the club. And I guess if we could get we can either read the minutes from last year, or if we get a motion from the floor to dispense with those readings, that would be appreciated. Tom Klinger.
Mr. Klinger. So Tom Klinger moved to dispense with the reading of last year's minutes. And I will make a motion that we have the same slate of board.
We have to second it and vote it in.
I was just leaving.
All right, Pat Morrow seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? And I'll make the same disclaimer as for the club that we will purchase or publish a treasurer's report later in the year, probably May or June time, sometime in there, as we've done in previous years on the rail report. And now to you, Dave.
Is it okay if I say something? No? I was just going to say, let's have the same slate for the foundation that we had for the Railroad Club, if that meets with your approval. I think Chip seconded. Yeah.
Yep. Chip Sherman seconded. So, all in favor of having the same slate of officers for the historical foundation as for the club, just to make things legal and all that. And we do have separate meetings for our board of directors, just as we are doing now. So, all in favor of that? Any opposed? Motion carries. We could get a motion from the floor to elect those officers again for the same ones that are slated for the historical foundation. Nathan Holmes moved, and Wally Wirt seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? All these, we got a naysayer in here. Yes, Nathan Sayer. That is evil Nathan. For those that don't know him real well, he was a previous president, and we thank him for that. And he's come back kicking and screaming, but we will have him on. So, do we have any old business for the historical foundation? Yeah, I was going to bring that up, but yes, thank you, Denny. This is our time of the year to solicit those here at the meeting and also those out in Zoom and YouTube land that the Rocky Mountain Railroad Historical Foundation is our 501c3 charitable part of the club. And so if you were able to make a end of the year donation, this is the one that would be tax deductible, and you're able to get a write-off on that. If you just make a donation to the club itself, that is not a write-off since it's a C7. And so you would need to write a check to the Rocky Mountain Railroad Historical Foundation. Is that right, Keith? Okay, Keith says that's right. And I think we also probably have something on our website. If not, I will get Mr. Chinetti to put something up there. But you've got till, I think, December 31st at 11:59, probably Mountain Time, or however maybe Eastern Time. I'm not sure quite how the tax laws work, but.
And I was just going to say that money from the foundation is what we use to fund those mini grants that we typically every year for helping small organizations do some restoration projects where they may be too small to really work on the radar of the bigger restoration projects that get the glamour and the bigger bucks. Thank you.
Yep. So some of those organizations we help out are like South Park Rail and the South Park Rail Historical Society up in Como. They're rebuilding the whole Como yard there as best as they can, and they also have a old steam engine that they run, and we try to go up there for Breas Pass every year in third weekend of August, and they do also have various work days there, and you can talk to Pat Morrow if you're interested in volunteering for that. We've got a few other smaller ones we've done, just little mini grants, about $1,000 to help with like paint of a smaller car that somebody has or one they're trying to restore. And oftentimes we'll get submissions for historical signage and that kind of thing. And so a lot of times that $1,000 will cover part of that, but maybe not all. But if these smaller organizations are able to get a few of those little mini grants from various places, then they can accomplish quite a bit. And, typically don't look for larger places like the Railroad Museum or other large foundations like that, because they can get both funding from the state and also they have a whole team or even an employee there that can write those grants. And so they're much more able to get those readily. And so we're kind of trying to help out the little man there. So your donations and other fundraising that we do throughout the year helps to fund that. And since we don't have any equipment of our own anymore, since we've dispensed with that, then we're able to do these little mini grants and focus more on that instead of restoring something ourselves, because insurance costs are through the roof and we just don't want to do that anymore. Anybody have any new business? Got to get a motion to close the Rocky Mountain Railroad Historical Foundation. Chip Sherman moves and Dave seconds. All in favor? Any opposed? That will conclude our annual meeting of the formalities for the Rocky Mountain Railroad Club and the Rocky Mountain Railroad Historical Foundation at 1949 or 7:49 p.m. there. And I will move it over to you, Dave. Oh, I guess I should check and see if there's any guests or visitors here tonight on my right-hand side here, or somebody that hasn't been here in a long time. Anybody?
We won't bite. You could just
Yeah.
stand up and say, howdy, I haven't been here in a while, that kind of thing,
Bruce
Bruce
Winston.
Vincent.
Okay.
It's been a few years since we've seen Rich Farewell too. Good to see you, Rich. Thank you for coming.
All right, and we'll go through a few more announcements here, and then we'll have a show by Keith Jensen tonight that'll be about a half hour long, and then we'll have some refreshments, cookies and drinks afterwards. But I'd also like to remind you all to, if you haven't renewed your membership yet for 2023, those reminder mailers should have gone out, I believe, in November. And I got mine in the mail, and
We have a couple of blank forms here if anybody needs to fill one out while you're here.
and we also have the information in the railroad report and also on the club website. And if it's convenient for you, the PayPal link on the website is working, and that's how I renewed mine. And that seems to be much easier than trying to write a check for some of us that I ran out of checks and we ordered more, and I can't find them. I never write checks, so I haven't been able to find the new checkbooks. So I don't know where they went.
Your dog ate them. Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past her.
And also, if you're visiting or you're out there in TV land and you want to stop by to one of our meetings sometimes, and you join our club at one of our meetings, we will give you a copy of our club history book. So there's a little extra incentive down the road.
And I guess another bit about the membership renewal. We do have a kind of a discounted price of $30 for those that will be getting the email rail report. And for those that still want it printed or don't have an email address, we do have to charge you a little extra, because we've got to print those out and either put them in an envelope or bind them and mail them out. We haven't quite decided how we're going to do that yet, but we're still working through the details. But we've been spoiled by Bruce all these years with the ones that are in a printable format, and those costs have just gotten quite expensive, and it takes a lot. And so we're kind of transitioning into a newer era here to save some money, and Chip Sherman is spearheading that, and we thank him for that. And
We've also found that a lot of printers have just kind of gone away, since more and more people are printing things at home. And then with COVID, less things were available, and paper got harder to get and more expensive, and the same with ink. So it's been a lot of things. So we're encouraging strongly for people to get your email newsletter.
Yep, and postage has gone up as well, and we do still have roughly 4 international members, and I think they probably prefer email just so it doesn't get delayed or destroyed in the mail getting out there because it's got a ways to go. So,
And you get your pictures in color. Yeah. What's that? Yeah. Yeah, it's harder for the dog to eat your email version. Yeah. Good point. Good point, Pete. Thanks.
and I'll just go ahead and shut up here so Dave can talk for a while.
Well, geez, okay. Current events. Chip, would you like to come up and tell us what's news in the world of railroading?
Top of the evening. Yeah, on December 4th, Santa Claus took a ride on the Colorado Pacific Railroad. If you're not familiar with that, that's the old Missouri Pacific Towner line. They have their 2 locomotives stored at Eads, and they went out of town, picked up Santa Claus, and brought it into town for their Merry on Main, spelled M-A-I-N-E. Yeah, Maine. And along with that came not 1, but 8 motor cars. So it was quite a sight to be seen. Anyways, that was at Eads, Colorado. Then down south in Albuquerque, New Mexico, there's Santa Fe 2926. They've got permission now to build or access 2/3 of a mile of track in the Albuquerque, New Mexico area. They've also got permission from the city of Albuquerque to use the turntable that the Santa Fe used to use in town. And they hope to someday run excursions. But in the meantime, they are planning to familiarize their crew with the 2926 operation. So they're making progress down in New Mexico. And last, if not least, Kambach Media, also known as Trains Magazine, has announced a 2023 Majestic Switzerland Tour by Rail. If anybody's interested, it's in September the 14th to the 25th, 11-night, 12-day excursion, and it only costs for singles $9,800. But if you bring a friend, the 2 of you can each pay $8,700. Don't all sign up too quick. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Chip. And thanks for stepping up to help us out with the newsletter. So, and I think Chip is probably looking for content. So if you guys have pictures or something like that, talk to Chip. He'll probably want you to email them to him because electronic is kind of the easy way to transfer stuff these days. Oh, before I forget it, and I should have done this before we had this very important meeting that we had, but please silence your cell phones because we don't want to interrupt the show and embarrass you and all that. Wally, did you have an appointment? You wanted us to send you pictures for the website if people have good pictures of train stuff, even mediocre pictures, hopefully lit sort of okay, but he'll put them on the web page. Yeah. Yeah, we have a page off of our the Rocky Mountain Railroad Club website that gives pictures and current events, that type of thing. And we also have a Facebook page trying to reach a different crowd. So I could use those if you send them to me. So Wally and I could use them both. Let's see. We thanked Mike Tinetti and Bruce Knoll. We talked about the phones. Let's see. Here's a quick rundown of our next upcoming shows. On the 10th of January, we will have via Zoom Steve Berry, who's the editor of Railfan and Railroad Magazine, with some of his favorite pictures of 2022. On the 14th of February, it's a lot of times our meetings land on Valentine's Day. Mark Huber, younger guy who works out at the Railroad Museum, will be here with maybe some of his videos. He has a different approach to how we do railroad videos, so I think you guys will like that. He's even made some videos about cooking pizza and food in the firebox of live steam engines. So it could be something like that. You never know. And then our presenter, again, by a long distance, on the 14th of March will be Blair Koistra from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And he has been a longtime dispatcher with BNSF and was a former news photographer for some newspapers around the West. And he'll have some great pictures for us too. So we actually have 3 months ahead on that type of stuff. Was somebody speaking? Oh, okay. I fight with my phone too. I mentioned a little earlier that former board member Dave Wagner passed away in the last couple of weeks. We're very sorry to hear that. We do have a card over here. If anybody would like to sign that, we will get that to the family. We don't have any tours scheduled right now. I've mentioned before that we were trying to get up to Cheyenne and take tours in the last few months before the majority of the equipment that was up there went east to Silvis, Illinois, but it just didn't work out time-wise. So I will stay in touch with the Steam folks in Cheyenne and see if we can have a roundhouse and shop tour in the next few months. I mean, obviously the 844 is still there, the rotary snowplow, there's a big 4884 engine up there that some people like to look at too. We could possibly see that. I think that's about it. So now Keith is going to present a video for us and give us a little more info. It's from 2006, right, Keith? Is that right? Yeah, so I'll let Keith give you a little more info about that.
Jay Wimmer used to run what he called Chama Steam, which was a freight, usually a freight train, almost always a freight train. But this one year, 2006, he arranged for having 3 locomotives on the train, and they dug out just about every car sitting in the yard in Chama. Now, some of these cars probably hadn't been run in decades. So that resulted in there not being too much in the way of run-bys, because at least 2 of them, my memory is right, the brake hoses failed. So he dynamited the train, had to stop, replace the brake hose. And then on top of that, when we got out to Osier, this is after the end of the regular season, so there were no other trains running. We turned around at Osier on the balloon loop, and the locomotive picked the frog on the balloon loop and went on the ground. So that was probably about an hour or more. So we only have one more run by on the way back. What you're going to see here is a scenario where it's wintertime and they sent out a single locomotive with a flanger from Antonito, preceding a regular freight train, double-headed freight train. And so I have the order of these scenes and the way we did them that day, but the reality is the last scene would have been first, coming up from on the east side with 2 locomotives. And then after they're in Chama and met the train from Durango and they're taking freight cars back, instead of doubling the hill, they would use all 3 locomotives in there. And I think I'll let the stack talk for itself. Okay, remember, this is 2006. Okay, the ranch wasn't closed. You weren't supposed to go from the highway down to the trestle, but we rode in the last, the cabooses, the two gons, and, there's that potty car that was right ahead of the gons. So that's part of the reason why this took so long and we didn't get that many run bys, is because they had to run across, do that whole process, getting across the bridge, let us off, back down, put the train back together, and then come up for us. And we intentionally had the photo line set way up above the bridge to get all that action. Okay, and then to save time, we walked up to the next photo run by Lobato Meadows. The shot before that also, there used to be a mining spur there, so some people call it the mine spur. There's now a private house there, but the head conductor is the owner of that house. So if you know him, he knows you, you can ask permission to still get in there. In fact, some people like to shoot from his porch. Yeah. Cresco Tank, again, we got in there by train. There is a trail coming down from the highway. If you look closely in the background, you could see that somebody was parked at the gate on the road. Then up at the Los Pinos Trestle, that had been private land. It's still being published as it being private land. But we'd get off the train and just go everywhere. A year ago, that changed. There's a sign on the road down there, no gates on the road, saying it's now public access. And it's mainly for fishing, but you can go out to Los Pinos Trestle now and get shots. And however, Los Pinos Tank, that's posted no trespassing. So you guys shoot from the road if you want to get shots of Los Pinos Tank. I don't think we had time to do Los Pinos Tank, even though where David and I were so well up above the tracks, we could have just about walked over there before the train got there. The other thing that's changed is all that track is now heavily ballasted. So these days, hardly any photo run bys are done on the west side anymore, just because until you get to Cresco Tank, it's private property. This year, they also would have had a hard time getting enough locomotives to do this trip. Closing day, they had to cancel one of the trains because they didn't have enough locomotives. Yeah, they had 2 in Antonito and one operational in Chama, and the one in Chama failed to steam. But somebody jokingly said it was because there was too much oil in the water. It was really the other way around. They converted the locomotive to burn oil, and they are having problems with the heaters that keep the oil warm, because you've got to warm up the oil to get it to go into the burners. Well, excuse me, the injector. It's not, the 168 is not running. What I've heard is that the hustler overnight managed to burn up the grates. So they have to get new grates. Yes. I've never noticed that, and I don't remember that happening. Do you, Dave?
No, I don't remember that either.
Well, and you got to understand that, especially at that time, most of the cabooses were fake anyway. I was on one 2 years later, was talking to the head conductor out on the platform, and the caboose derailed, and he went to grab the emergency brake, and there was no emergency brake on it because it wasn't a real caboose. So fortunately, just then the airline went and stopped it anyway.
Yeah, actually, I think they were, it was fortunate that there was that many cars all painted up Rio Grande. You could see that they were all in really good shape. So I think we all have to appreciate when these things can even happen. You just never know. And boy, that weather was hard to beat that day. You know, you could see that the smoke went straight up. There was no breeze, and the echoes were great. One thing that I noticed was, and this is sort of a rail fan comment or a photo line courtesy, with all that distant steam whistle and echo, it's really good when the people around you are not talking. I think so many of us think about doing stills, and then when they stop to water up the engines or something like that, we stand around a yada, yada, yada. But that would have ruined Keith's video. I mean, he really had pretty clean audio, and it's a rare thing. You know, a lot of times you can't get that.
But you also know what kind of rig I use.
Yeah, no, I guess I'm talking more about people standing near you and just chitty chatting,
Well,
you know.
that's why I have this
Yeah.
expensive rig it's bigger than the camera sometimes, and it's to get the forward sound, and then I can work on the other sound and on the side sounds based on what's going on around me. It's actually called a side mic. And so what you're listening to is not what was recorded. You're listening to a mix of the two channels that I record. And that's so that if things get noisy close to me, I can get rid. But I did manage to get a lot of side sound that was clean on this trip. Up on the hill trip, you were the only one that was near me up on the hill.
And most of the time I was quiet. So. It's what I do for a living. Wally, did you have a question? Yeah, Wally's talking about train handling. For people at home couldn't hear that maybe, but yeah, those are small wooden cars, very lightweight. It'd be easy to mess them up. And you saw that they had to do a little bit of jockeying around there at the water tank, you know, to get things lined up. But that's not an easy thing when you have 3 engines in a train, you know.
And I think we had 33 cars on that train. 35 cars.
Oh, that was a real special day. It really was. And just like when they ran the Rotary a couple of years ago, you never know if this might happen again. So if you have the chance to go, it's always good to go. He was just saying early 1968, early December 1968 was the last through train from Antonito, Chama, Durango, westbound. Right, Tom? I mention these things because not all of us are in this room. There are people watching from afar, and we didn't do the intros earlier. This is Andy Dell. This is our president, and I'm Dave Schaff, vice president. Keith is our treasurer and was nice enough to do a program for us today. I think somebody else had another question.
Actually, for Chama Steam, it was quite a few. I've been on some of those that had only 15, but I think this was well over 30, maybe 40 people on this one. At times the gondolas look kind of full. No, it was not the last one he ran. I'm sure he ran 2000. I've got a sticker for
So,
2007.
Yeah, I was there in 2006 just as a chaser, and what he did for the chasers is if you were nice enough to donate some money or throw some money towards the cause, he gave you a couple of 2 or 3 Xeroxed pages that just kind of said, hey, here's some good stops for photo shoots, and I think he gave a rough kind of idea of when it would be through. And I was thinking about going, and then I had a flat tire on my car that week, and I wasn't able to go to the tire store to get another tire, and that car at the time had a full-size spare, and I just kind of him and hawed around that night, and finally like, I'm just gonna go take my chances. If I blow out the tire and I get stuck somewhere, yeah, got AAA. So I think I headed out about 3 or 4 in the morning and drove all night, and I got there right as they were getting ready to pull up to Lobato Trestle. So I missed some of it, but I was able to do a fair amount of chasing, and it was either that year or the next year I met our good friend William Deal, and his friend that was with him took off without him. So there he's standing on the side of the road with his camera going, hey, you chasing the train here? You mind if I get a ride up to the next stop? And, well, let me throw my crap out of the seat here and hop on in. And oh wait, the door handle doesn't work on this car, so I have to get it from the inside. And good old Volkswagen Passat in '96, and yeah, door handles were not much of a feature, but yes, Ron.
Well, the third engine, operationally, they would have cut it off at the top of Chama, Cumbres Pass, and sent it on ahead to Antonito. They also would have done that with the mid-train engine, because Rio Grande had a rule that you did not have 2 engines going downhill on the train. And that's because of the issues with the braking. I've seen them mess it up going uphill, or when they recombine the train after going across Lobato, they wouldn't have the control stand set up correctly because you only want one in control. And so they had to switch who was in control when they hooked the train back together. And one time I remember them coming on the radio and having a little discussion about that. So when we got to top of Cumbres, the can't remember exactly which engine, but they took the lead engine and the flanger off and sent it back to Chama, and then the mid train and one engine went on ahead. Excuse me, one engine by itself went ahead to Osier, and our train proceeded down with just one engine, which is the way it would have happened in the operational days.
And if I remember right, Keith, was when they cut off the front engine up at Cumbres, did they back it into that snow shed Y there?
Yeah, the snow shed wide, but I don't think the snow shed was there at the time.
Yeah, I think I got a picture of that or something somewhere. I'd have to look, but I seem to remember that. And was that the year that they derailed the 484 on the balloon loop, or was that the next year? Okay.
2006 was.
Yeah, so that was also made the day extra long. So I was up sitting above, looking down at the Osier Trestle from the highway where they got the little parking lot off of there. And I sat there with a number of people and the wind was whipping and I'm like, okay, when the heck is this thing coming back? We've been waiting forever. And finally we got somebody with the radio and they said, oh yeah, they derailed on the balloon loop. And I thought about just driving back home then. I was like, oh, I'll go ahead and wait. And then stupid me, I just had a point and click camera at the time. It was a little simple digital one and the wind had picked up just enough and it blew my tripod over. And well, let's just say that camera is no more. I guess the other thing I can remember from that evening too is I did stick around later and maybe might have been the next year in 2007 when I went as well, but I just remember it had gotten dark by the time they were starting to head back and it was just amazing to hear where the various engines were heading back down the canyon on the west side there and you could hear them whistling and it's just dark and you could just hear it echoing off the hills and it was just amazing.
Well, it's common to go down the west side in the dark. There was one time I asked if anybody needed to be chiseled off of the seats in the gondola because it was that cold going down. And I think we got in 7:30. And this year the Ramblers, they ran after the season. The railroad organized it, sold tickets. The first night they got back into Chama at 9. And the second night they got back into Chama at 9:30. Fortunately, the guy who you gave a ride, William Dill, gave me a ride down from the pass. So I didn't have to sit on the train for the next 3 hours, go down the pass in the dark. Also the Friends trip, got to the pass just about, it was after sunset when they got to the pass and the Friends arranged for a bus back to Antonito rather than sitting on the train going back down to Chama.
Yeah, I also attended the 2007, just drove down. I got down a little earlier that year and I think I actually sprang for a room and stayed overnight and that kind of thing and got my little chasing pass again. And for those of us that got a chasing pass, they did some kind of deal where you could get a free video as well and on DVD. And they said, oh yeah, we should have it to you by December. So of course, Chama Steam happened in October and December comes along. I don't see any DVD. And I hear rumors that whoever had done the video for Jay, they kind of went sideways and had a little disagreement in their friendship. And all of a sudden, sometime in 2008, I completely forgot about it. And all of a sudden, something shows up in the mail. And thought, that's kind of odd. I opened it up. Oh, hey, look at that. The Chama Steam 2007 video. I completely forgot about that, but I did eventually get it. So I have it somewhere. But those were neat trips when Jay was doing those. And I think 2007 might have been the last year because he'd gotten kind of sideways with some people at the railroad as well. And yeah, and I don't know if he's even still down there or not, but
Oh,
really?
yeah, he passed away earlier this year. And there were several things done to remember him up there, but yeah, I had some business dealings with him in this video and that didn't go well either. So
Yeah.
so he was a little hard to do business with.
And I seem to remember too, just in those years, the railroad was struggling a bit. So just the fact that they were able to put that on and get all the cars that they had working was quite the feat. And, they were doing the best they could just to keep those 3 engines running because 489 was still having it was getting redone then, and then they redid it again a few years after that. And then they did the redo now with the oil conversion. So it's gotten a lot of attention over the years, it seems like, and it hasn't always gone real well. And they put a lot of money into the track, like Keith talked about, a lot of ballast and that kind of stuff. So they've really made some good improvements over there since I've been visiting.
Well, the track work was state grants.
Right. But it needed it.
And they still rely on the states, funding from the states, because they don't make enough money from their operations to even do their operations. So that you're probably going to see less of excursions like this because the prices are going up next year.
Anybody else have any other questions? Back to Dave.
We did have a question earlier. If anybody, I can't remember if John Dillevue is still with us, or does anybody have any details? Somebody asked earlier. One of our former officers, John Dillevue. I guess nobody knows. I couldn't remember. Okay. Any other questions for Keith about this video?
That's because going up the east side, the flanger would have been out ahead of the train with the one locomotive. They always ran the flanger by itself to do out of Antonito to clear the track before the regular train. So you would not normally see a flanger on a westbound train. It had already gone through.
Yeah, there has to be some suspension of disbelief. You have to remember it is a recreation, and we do what we can. I thought about that too. It's like, wow, there was pipes going eastbound, but we have to remember that, you have to get them there somehow. Yeah. Well, if we don't have any other questions, I was going to say our past president, Denny Leonard, has brought some cookies and soda, because this is the famous annual cookies and soda party after our December meeting, because you were patient and sat through the election. So, Denny, would you like to, or shall we send them over? Is it time? Okay. Yeah, there we go. All right. Thank you, Keith. That was some good looking video. Yeah.